there's your problem. I was successfully able to change the spring and save like 15 grand with a $15 tool from Amazon. So just gonna assemble everything and see how she cranks. So stay tuned for that. VDIAGTOOL is actually running a special at the end of this month from the 25th all the way to the 31st. Check out the link, click on it, it takes you to the Amazon store. Welcome back to the channel. This morning I wanted to do a quick update on VicZilla. Yes, it's been sitting here for a while, and that's because I blew up the transmission in the last video I made on it, and it still has second gear, still does burnouts, but that's about it. So I got a solution. Your boy yesterday went and picked up a TR6060 out of a 2012 GT500 with only 15,000 miles or so. The guy was nice enough and he included the shifter, the pedals, a drive shaft, which is aftermarket. Hopefully I can modify it. I'm not sure what length I need just yet until I install this guy. He gave me the mount, which I don't think I'm gonna need, and also the center console, which would be cool. If I can make this fit in the Crown Vic, that would be awesome. But this thing will solve all my problems. This thing should hold all the power. The only downside is I had to order a new flywheel and clutch and throw up bearing, but that'll be here in a few days. As soon as that comes in, I'm going to start fitting this into the Crown Vic and making this thing a 6-speed manual with Whipple supercharged. This thing's going to be a beast. Let me know what you think. Also, if you need any kind of scan tools or battery testers or anything like that, check out the link in my description. VDIAGTOOL is actually running a special at the end of this month from the 25th all the way to the 31st. Check out the link, click on it, it takes you to the Amazon store. You can scroll up and down and choose whatever you need. This tool actually helped me a lot with the batteries. I test my batteries in all the vehicles, make sure they're all good, because you don't want a weak or dead battery. That's going to kill your electronics in the newer cars. You just don't want to play with that, because this tool will save you a lot of money. By the way, in the last 2-3 months, I've been bidding on GT500s on the auction from 2007 all the way to 2014, and no luck, because even Smash with no title, like junk titles, they would still sell for over 10 grand, and it just didn't make any sense to me, because I'd have to buy it, go pick it up, strip it down, take what I need out, and then scrap the car or sell the rest of the parts to try to get my money back or whatever. But all of this cost me $3,500 bucks. The clutch kit itself was about $500, so I'm $4,000 into this manual swap so far. I'm sure I'm going to need more stuff, probably modify the drive shaft or just make one from scratch. I'm not sure, but right now all of this was $4,000, and I'm sure it's just going to go up. All that being said, this video is going to be a little bit different. This is just going to show you what my day is like on a daily basis, and this is a Saturday, so I'm going to be traveling from one site to another and then working on multiple vehicles on the same day, and that's my daily schedule pretty much. So stay tuned. Jeez. Alright, so now we're at a different location working on an F350. 2021 F350 with a 6.2 liter gas prepped engine. What I mean by that is this thing runs on bi-fuel. It either runs on gasoline or on natural gas. Right now I have the fuel rails out on the natural gas side because I'm working on this engine. This vehicle ended up at a Ford dealership a few weeks ago, and they said it was a bad engine. Why did they decide that? Because there's no coolant in the reservoir and the engine wouldn't start. And that's all they did. And they decided it's a bad engine. That being said, this truck ended up in my hands, and I wanted to confirm that it is a bad engine. So what I did was I pulled 8 out of the 16 spark plugs. What I mean by that is I pulled the top 8 spark plugs. These 6.2s, they run on 16 spark plugs. So when I did that, I did a compression test on all 8 cylinders, and well, let me back up a little bit. So number 3 had 0. The rest of them had 150. So I'm not sure what the specs are, but the fact that they were all 150 besides number 3, they're all the same, I'd say that that's a good engine still. But why does number 3 have 0 compression? It's gonna be hard to see on video, but the coolant is low because of the leak over here on the coolant hose. which will be fixed in a little bit. But I took the valve cover off, and valve spring number 3 on the intake side is broken. But the way it's broken is it's still there, but it's not doing its job. It's not sealing the valve. So that being said, the valve is just slightly open and there's no compression. There's air always going in to the intake, and this intake, the way it's designed, it's open, so it's sucking crazy air. So it's a crazy air leak in the intake, and this thing will not fire. I got it running for like a split second, but it barely idled, and as soon as I put it in reverse, I was trying to get this thing inside the shop, it would just stall out. So I have a solution. So I went on Amazon and ordered this $15 tool. It's a valve spring compression tool, and it sort of looks promising, but I've never used one of these, and I've never replaced a spring with the head being on the engine still. Yes, if the head's out, you can use the, you know, the regular valve spring compression tool.
You ever had a dream that you could do?
Am I saying that wrong? Anyways, so the plan is, I've got the new spring, I've even got the new valve seal, I've got all new parts just in case, so I'm gonna replace them all, and I'm gonna attempt to pull the spring off without removing the head. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the engine over, make sure that cylinder number 3 is at the very top, and that way if the valve does fall in, it won't fall in all the way, it'll rest on top of the piston. But let's see if we can get that out and see what the spring actually looks like, and maybe trying to figure out why it failed. I mean, the truck has around 65,000 miles on it. It's nothing crazy, but for some reason the spring popped, and let's go get the thing removed. Alright, now that I have the rocker arms out of the way on the intake side on bank 1, I should be able to get to the valve spring pretty easy. And as you can see, it is broken, but it's still in place. Alright, so by sticking the camera down the spark plug hole on cylinder number 3, I'm able to see that the piston is not all the way up at this point. So I gotta figure out how I'm gonna turn this engine over. It's really hard to get to the crank bolt, but with all the spark plugs being out, there's no compression. So maybe I can just turn this the alternator bolt, and it'll give me that little bit, because the piston's about halfway up right now. So I don't need much. Alright, so I had no luck turning the alternator bolt because it was just slipping the belt. A little bit of coolant spilled on it, so that didn't help. But what I did was I bumped the starter really quickly with the key, and I was able to pretty much get it as close as possible to the top. The piston's all the way up pretty much, but the valve is still open. All these valves are supposed to be closed right now, and that one is stuck open. It's like a 1/4 inch. So that's where it's sucking in extra air, not building compression, and all the air is going inside the intake, and it's a mess. So at this point, I'm gonna attempt to remove the valve spring, and hopefully everything goes well. I don't want to take the head off. I don't want to take half of the engine apart, or I don't want to replace the engine. There's your problem. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I ended up having to cut some of the spring because there was no way to compress it because it was broken in multiple places. Well, it was actually broken in one place, and then I cut the other one, and that actually got the spring out. So we're in good shape. I'm able to compress this one. I will have to modify this tool a little bit. I'm sure that these pieces right here probably are used in some other vehicles, but they're actually in the way on this one. So I'm just gonna trim those off, give me more room on the head, and compress it, and then put it back in. And good thing I got all new parts and the seal. I gotta get the seal out real quick and change that out. Alright, so I slightly modified the tool. I cut the tabs on this side to give it more room, and I'm hoping I could just drop it in like this. It's already compressed as much as I can. Maybe I could do a little bit more, and just drop the keepers in and release it. Let's hope that goes well. All right, I've been fighting this thing for about 20 minutes, but I finally got it in there. The hardest part was getting the valve keepers in there. If it was one of these valves up here, it would have been much easier, but you know, you can't choose which one fails. I did pressurize that cylinder number 3 with air, just so it keeps the valve up and closed. And then again, I put the cylinder all the way, or the piston all the way up, so if it does fall, it will just hit the piston and I can get it back up. So right now, I just gotta figure out how I'm gonna get this tool out, and then once that's done, I can reassemble the whole side, put the spark plugs back in, and see how she runs. So this valve spring tool was okay. I mean, I was able to change one valve, and it's worth the 15 bucks, because this $15 tool that broke when I was removing it, little C-clip fell out, and I was able to retrieve everything, so no damage to the engine or anything. But I mean, this thing fell apart. I was successfully able to change the spring and save like 15 grand with a $15 tool from Amazon. So even if you have to buy, you know, 10, 15 of these tools, it's still better than taking the whole engine apart and taking the head off and doing it the other way. But got the spring in. So the spring is in. As you can see, number 3 is finally gonna be able to seal on the intake valve. I can get rid of this. And now I'm just gonna assemble everything and see how she cranks. So stay tuned for that. Alright, so I've got it all assembled enough to get it running. I did not put the CNG fuel rails back in yet, because I'm gonna go back and change the spark plugs. But I did rehook the gasoline injectors back up just so I can get it running. So it's not 100% complete, but it's enough to get this thing cranking. What do you think? Is it gonna start? I know the batteries are weak, so let me get them tested real quick and get a booster box most likely and get this thing going. And if you haven't yet, check out the link in the description for VDIAGTOOL and get yourself a scan tool or a battery tester or anything on their Amazon store and save some money. They are running a special right now from the 25th up until 31st, so check them out. Link in the description. So the battery tested a little weak. It is a dual battery vehicle, so I'm gonna throw a jump box on this side and hopefully it cranks. If not, I'll get another jump box on the other side, and we'll get this thing cranking. All right, first crank, let's go. Started right up. Flawless. This thing is running great. It is smoking a little bit, but that's just from before. It's gonna burn everything through and should be good. Gonna let it idle for a while and charge the batteries and take it for a test drive. So while she's warming up to full temp, I'm gonna go ahead and scan it for codes and clear all the PCM codes that were stored before. She's running great. She's almost up to full temp. The smoke went away. So if you're ever wondering if you can possibly change a valve spring, a broken valve spring on the 2011 and up 6.2 liter Ford engine, the answer is yes, you can. Obviously you need a better tool than I used, but that was a last minute thing and that's the quickest tool I could get. So I'm gonna shop around and find the proper tool for future, make things easier, but anything's possible. All right, so all the codes are cleared. No issues here. I'm using ForeScan right now. I don't have my scan tool with me, but I do have my laptop, so it does awesome. If you never used ForeScan, I recommend it. Use it, scan it again. Perfect, no codes. All right, I think she's ready for a test drive. All right, first drive. I'm not gonna drive it much. I just wanted to make sure that it's everything else checks out. I'm gonna scan it for codes one more time. No lights on the dash. this thing is good to go. Besides, I'm gonna put new spark plugs in it, change the oil, and put the natural gas fuel rails back on, reconnect everything, and make sure the natural gas system works. That way the customer can keep using the biofuel option. By the way, if you're looking to convert your truck or car to natural gas, hit up alltecheco.com and get you a quote for a conversion. Let's go. Now that the 6.2 liter F250 valve spring issue is complete for the day, I'm going to explain what's going on here. This is a project I've been working off camera, and this is where it's at. So belongs to a friend of mine, and he bought this. It's a 1992 Mustang FoxBody 5.0. Now this thing did have a 5.0 in it when he got it, but it was an automatic car. So he hits me up, he goes, hey, can you help me out? All it needs is a clutch pedal. I think it needs a lot more than a clutch pedal, because I installed the clutch pedal, but then noticed that the engine's partially disassembled. So I've already started assembling some stuff here and there. He did get new hoses and a lot of new parts. He is using the aftermarket intake. Here's the comparison to that. This is the original and that's the aftermarket. And then there's tons and tons of parts. And the fact that he said all it needs is a clutch pedal was a huge lie. I like his headers though. So that being said, the engine that was in here with the automatic transmission actually had a slight knock, and basically he bought all new drivetrain. He bought the engine off a running car, and he bought the manual transmission that was attached to it. He put a new clutch in it. A lot of work has been done with another friend of his, but then it got passed on to me. So going back a few months ago, I guess, we worked on it, and I did put the clutch pedal in, and to do that I had to remove the whole dash. And when you start removing these old connectors, they fall apart. So that's an issue there. I'm not gonna put the dash back in until this thing runs. But you know, the transmission's in place, the drive shaft is on there. Gotta put the headers on, and then hook up the clutch cable. You know, it's the little things, but it takes time. Right now I'm gonna go ahead and flush the oil, and then bolt everything down. I guess the fuel rails will bolt down. We got a couple new hoses, like the heater core hoses and all that. There's lots of questions. There's a few grounds that are not attached to the body, and I'm not sure where they go. I've never worked on a FoxBody before. I am a Mustang fan, and I'm sure we can figure this out. This is not something I can pull up though on the Motorcraft manual, but they do have one of these available. So it's a 1989 to 93. This is a 1992. There's going to be a lot of research and reading involved, but I think I can get this thing running. And once it's running, it's going to the drag strip probably. Maybe. So let me explain why I'm doing an oil flush. This car sat outside with this engine in with no intake at all. Not even the bottom intake, outside for a while, and even though it was covered up, water still managed to get in and got into the oil. And we made a mistake by not checking the oil or draining the oil. It was fresh oil, but we didn't check it, and we started priming the oil pump through the distributor hole with the socket, and basically made a milkshake, which is good that we caught it before we started this car. So this is like a easier fix, but this is the third time I'm flushing it with some fresh oil, and we should be good. You can hear the oil going through the heads and all that. Jamal was nice enough to drop some supplies off the other day, which is cool. It's got he brought a brand new oil filter, some seafoam, some brake fluid, some coolant, and some oil. So I'm gonna dump this whole can into the tank because I don't know how old this fuel is in this thing. Hopefully that helps. If not, we'll pump it out when the time comes. I'm just gonna dump it in there. This seafoam is getting harder and harder to open. I mean, are people drinking this stuff or what? A brand new oil filter. Let's go. Same brand new oil filter like you can get a used one. I mean, you can, but if you're getting a used oil filter, something wrong with you for sure. Torque that down. Working on the project that somebody else started is actually the worst thing you could probably do, and if you agree, hit like, because there's a lot of unknown. Is this transmission filled with oil? We don't know. We don't know. And yes, I'm putting cheap oil in right now because we're gonna change it one more time once it's running. We're gonna get it up to full temp and change it, put proper oil in it. Well, a better brand of oil is what I'm saying. This is the right oil. 530 holds 5 quarts. If you don't know that, now you know. One thing I did not know is they used to make a 2.3 liter in these FoxBodies back then. And so I don't know why people are bitching about the 2015 and up EcoBoost 2.3 engines. They're actually not that big of a deal. Maybe not everybody wants to get a big ass V8. And by the way, those 2.3 EcoBoost engines can actually push some power. So this engine's been apart before. I'm talking about down to the pistons and all that. Bottom end, I'm sure, was taken apart and all that. So whoever put it back together didn't put the crank pulley where it's supposed to be, but they actually made their own mark. So right now, cylinder 1 is at the very top dead center, and I am on the purple marker mark. So I'm assuming that's how it's gonna be. I'm not about to go back in time and change that crank pulley to where it needs to be. I'm not sure if that's gonna matter or not. Please let me know. I've never worked on one of these before. I usually work on newer stuff, so this is all new to me. But it's I mean, it should be more simple than this new stuff. I mean, there's only like so many wires here. I mean, injectors, and I mean, all it needs fuel and air to get this thing going. So right now, like I said, cylinder 1 is at the very top, or piston number 1. I did confirm that matches with the marker on the crank. So now I can put the distributor in. Or just drop it in like that, you know. Same, but different. So piston number 1 is all the way to the top dead center. Distributor's in place. This is number 1. So I'm pretty sure I have it lined up correctly. And once again, once the car's running, you can adjust it. You know, you can just adjust the timing a little bit. So that's something you do when the vehicle's running. Put the bracket on, plug this in, and then I'm gonna focus on putting the headers on. I think there's a few wires that go down. I'm not sure how they're routed just yet, and that manual doesn't really help me much. It's kind of useless actually, or maybe I just don't know how to read it properly. But yeah, so getting closer. I got the starter wire routed properly. It actually goes in the front. We thought it goes to the rear, but it actually goes in the front. But there's a broken bolt on the block. That's why that bracket doesn't really want to fit there. And I noticed there's only one wire going to the starter, but I guess it just gets grounded to the engine. So at this point I can go ahead and put the header on this side because it won't be in the way. I just wasn't sure about the wiring, and I actually had to look up a video on how it goes. So it actually goes right here, right by the sway bar, but there is a broken bolt. You can't see it, it's too dark, I don't have a flashlight. Alright, so I got the passenger side header, bank 1 header. It's got a gasket. I'm just gonna assume that the shiny side goes against the header. Maybe not, I don't know. I don't think it matters because the holes line up either way. Let me know in the comments if it's wrong. I'll probably not swap it. Finally got the passenger side header on. That thing was out of shape and twisted into like 69 different ways. I had to fight every single bolt, and every single bolt had to be different size because it's a custom, I guess, long tube header. So finally got this side. I got most of the cooling hoses all connected, and did have to remove the distributor again because I forgot to prime the oil after I put it in. after I put the fresh oil in. Got that done. This thing is just gonna have to be adjusted while it's running, and that's about it. New oil filters there. Did have to remove the spark plugs to get the header bolts all secured, and you're not able to torque them down. It's just open wrench is all you can do on them, so righty tighty, I guess, best you can. So unfortunately I'm out of time. It's getting dark outside, so that's gonna be it on this one. Hopefully in the next video I'll have this thing cranking and running. I'm not sure how much of the interior I'm gonna do, but the goal is to get this thing running and driving. So stay tuned. Let me know if you like this kind of content. Later.